Welcome to Iron Butterfly Podcast. My name is Megan Jaffer.
And I'm Katie Hopkins, and we'll be your hosts.
We created Iron Butterfly Podcast in honor of Eloise Page, the original Iron Butterfly. 80 years ago, Eloise joined the Office of Strategic Services, trailblazing a path for what ultimately became the United States intelligence community. She rose the ranks from secretary to case officer, defying the norms of her time, and eventually became the first female chief of station at CIA. Eloise was known among her colleagues to be a fierce fighter with a core of steel, and she earned the codename Iron Butterfly. Our podcast continues her legacy, inviting the unsung heroines of the United States intelligence community to share their stories with aspiring leaders like you.
Shari Rozen is the Chief Data and Artificial Intelligence Officer at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. A few of her favorite jobs include as a sales associate at The Gap, great jeans, we will be talking about that later, a private sector consultant in the financial sector, and of course her current role as CDAO. Shari describes herself as curious, analytical, energetic, and minimalist. That's a great word. And she loves to hike, travel, craft, and sleep. When she submitted this, she said that she wasn't sure if sleep was a hobby. We totally disagree. That absolutely counts. And a fun fact about Shari is that she once drove a Ferrari at the Ferrari factory in Italy. That's pretty badass.
That's pretty awesome. Welcome, Shari.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this.
So glad to be here.
We are very glad that you're here. So are you ready?
I am.
Okay.
Let's dive right in.
Let's dive in.
Let's.
So we want to know about you. We want to know, what brought you here to DC? Did you grow up in DC? Did you come here? Where, if you did not grow up here, where did you come from? And what brought you to the IC?
Yeah, sure.
I always love when Megan kicks off an episode with 20 different questions.
Well,
Part of me wanted to say I'm from space, but I will not say that. No, I'm from the DC area. So I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. So very much a local. I went away to college. I went to Penn State, got my bachelor's there, and then came back, started working. And at the same time I was working, doing the consulting work, I got my master's, both in information science and computers, kind of IT type of degrees. So STEM has kind of always been something that I've been working in, no matter where I was working, and kind of a hobby interest of mine, because when I grew up, my dad and I, this is fun fact, used to go to computer shows, and we kind of see what the new technology was, and it was just kind of a bonding thing that we had, and my sister was very much not interested in that. So it was definitely the two of us, just my dad and I, and we would, look and find new pieces for computers and upgrade the systems that we had. So it was definitely something I got into at a pretty early age. And then went and got my degrees and then came back to this area. Yeah.
So was your dad into computers? Is that what he did for?
He was, yeah. So kind of segueing into how I got into the IC, he started off his career working on the space program. He was an aeronautical engineer, but majority of his career was at the Defense Intelligence Agency as well as the State Department. So that's kind of how I had awareness and understanding of the intelligence community, and the really, very much important mission for national security.
What I love, especially because we do have young women, middle school and high schoolers that listen to this podcast as well. And I'm thinking of one in particular because her dad is in the IC and he has her listen. That I love that's what you did with your dad.
Yeah.
And it kind of breaks the stereotype of like a little boy and his dad, which is great too. But I love having a little girl going to these computer shows with her dad. I think that gives another image that I love.
Tell us about one of the computer shows that sticks out in your memory. Like, what was it like? Like, what was memorable about it?
So I think one in particular was my dad was always advocating that my sister and I be very independent in terms of, whenever we made reservations for hotels or restaurants, he'd always make us call. Right, he wanted us to plan things and to kind of be at the forefront of the decisions we were making. If we were to buy an expensive purchase, we'd go to the library and we'd do the research and make sure that we were really being, cautious with our money and making the right decisions. So one of the things was at a particular computer show, I was buying some additional memory for the I was going to say central processing unit, but the big computers that people had before most people started using laptops. And I was very frustrated because I did not think the individual was giving me a very good deal. So I was negotiating and negotiating.
Oh my God, I love this.
And I mean, I was like 11 or 12 years old. Like I wasn't very old. And finally, he just was not giving me the deal that I wanted. And I did have to call in for backup, which was my dad. And we finally got a reasonable deal on it. But it stuck out in my head, right? Because I was really, I was proud of myself looking back that, I was pushing for what I thought was right. But it was nice to kind of know also that my dad at the end of the day was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the case that it did not work out.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I think our dads would get along because my dad used to take me to his office to sell Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah.
And I would be very direct with people, and I would go into the office and knock on the door.
Shocking.
And I'd start all cute. I'd be like, "Do you want to buy some Girl Scout cookies?" And they'd be like, "No." And I'd be like, "Are you sure?"
You don't want me to succeed in life?
Exactly. Exactly. And I swear to God, I wouldn't leave. My dad had to drag me out of the office. It's like, they said no. There's thousands of people in this office building. We'll go to the next office.
You don't love America?
Exactly. You hate the Girl Scouts? Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. I think it's so great when parents help with that. Yeah. And I love that even your parents had you calling and asking for yourself and advocating for yourself, doing research for yourself. It's really cool.
Yeah. I think it was interesting because kind of learning that later on in life when I went to college, there's a very great college near where I lived, and another college was interested in me attending, and I said, well, why would I go to your school when I can go to a really great school right up the street that's a third of the price? I got a full scholarship, so it worked out well. Could have worked out badly, but it's just really kind of always keeping in mind that you can always ask for more, and the worst that can happen is they just say no.
Yeah, totally.
I wish more, you're very lucky to have learned that lesson young, because we hear from so many women who don't have that kind of support early on and struggle with that as adults, with, maybe negotiating their salary or negotiating, being promoted or something like that. And so I wonder what you would say to some of them. It's one thing to kind of, you were taught that, right? You were kind of...
Which a lot of women are. You mean if you were taught to advocate for yourself.
Yeah. So she was taught to advocate for herself, but a lot of women weren't, right?
Totally.
And don't know
I meant almost the opposite. Women are rewarded for not advocating for themselves and being very flexible and go with the flow and appeasing other people.
Yeah. And so I wonder, when you mentor young women who don't feel comfortable, advocating for themselves, what do you say to them?
I have come into that, right, where I've had conversations with, folks that are, colleagues or people that I'm mentoring. And I think the key thing is really taking a step back and realizing your worth, right? You and everyone bring something to the table. Mm-hmm. And we cannot even begin to address our national security problems without a very, unique and diverse set of thought. And I think that's really something that people forget, right? Is you get into, group think sometimes, and you kind of assume, well, I'll just have the same people who have the same ideas with me around the table. Mm-hmm. And you kind of fall into that. So I really try to push for people to think and see think about the things that you've done, and that's brought you to this point, and there's a lot more that you can do. I mean, I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday about, I was joking with them about I just recently got the artificial intelligence officer role, and they were, very excited, which was really sweet. And they're like, don't forget, other people, or, don't forget about us. And I was, of course not. You have so much that you have done. Mm-hmm. Anything, I would be lucky to have you, working on. She works in the Inspector General's office. All of the problems that you see are things that we can make better and that we could be doing differently, right? Like looking at a different lens. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just something that a lot of, women, and I do it too. It's not as if it doesn't come up in my head sometimes, right? Like the imposter syndrome. But it's really taking a look at what you've done and knowing that you can do so much more if you get that opportunity. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's really important to help people understand that.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally. So you have this lifelong passion for computers. You end up studying STEM in college.
Yeah.
Did you hop around with your major at all? Was there a period of indecision, or were you like, this is exactly what I want?
Yeah. So it was kind of interesting. I always knew I wanted to be financially independent, which sounds odd as a child. But I think
not for the child that negotiated on the computer fair.
Sure. Yeah. I wanted to make sure that I had a major where, I could support myself, and also something that I think I would have some flexibility in. And I think when I was younger, it was something that I found interesting was these people who got to, work remotely or work, different types of hours or kind of have some flexibility with their jobs. So I always, I guess, for some reason thought computers might allow me to do that. So that was one thing that stuck out in my head. I think the other part of it was I just really saw the passion and the joy that my father had working in the same field. And I think that was something that I really wanted, right? He'd be so busy each day, but he was exhausted and happy at the same time every day when he'd come home from work. So I think that was something that really resonated with me, and kind of that passion for his job and what he was doing. I think, was something that I wanted for myself. There was a part of time when I wanted to get into medicine, very different field. And then I realized how many years of school that you have to go through, and I was like, I don't know if that is really what I want. But no, it was pretty much computers, and I think it was just, something that I knew would both be interesting and be able to support me financially.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then when you graduated, you stayed in Pennsylvania, or were you back here?
Yeah, I came back here. I started working with a large defense contractor, and it was interesting. It was a lot of systems engineering work. So at the time, that company had a large contract with NGA, and it was really exciting, kind of as my first foray with the, IC officially, kind of seeing what their mission was and seeing all the really cool things that they did, and kind of learning about the imagery, how they do the work that they do. So I really enjoyed that. And then I went on to do some consulting with a consulting firm. And that was both public and private sector support. What I loved about that was there was a lot of travel, a lot of long hours and late nights, but with teammates working on interesting problems. So it was still really fun at that time. It's about 20 years ago, so I was a lot younger too, and I had a lot more energy for it. But it was just really interesting to kind of see the dynamic between when I would be doing work for the public sector and government clients versus, at that time, financial sector. It was just amazing. I mean, they would give you money, you would fix the problem or work on the problem, give them a report, and it was just nonstop, right? Like you'd work 18, sometimes 20 hours and deliver, and it was just such a quick turn. It was very interesting to see if there was a problem that they wanted to address. I mean, it happened so quickly. And it was really kind of fascinating to see also that some of the challenges that they had were not unique to them, right, on either side,
Yeah,
both in the public or
definitely.
private sector. Especially at that time, it was cybersecurity work. So it was really much, everyone was kind of dealing with the same challenges.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Do you feel like when you first started to get into the intelligence community, do you feel like it helped you understand anything about your dad better? Like, were there things that you were like, oh, like, this is why you are the way that you are?
Yeah. I think so. I think part of that was his work in the intelligence community. I think the other part of it was a bit of the survival mentality. So he grew up in Harlem. My mom grew up in Long Island, and they met up there and then came down here. But I think there's an aspect when you grow up in an area that's a little bit more challenging. You kind of always have it in the back of your head, right? That it's important for me to do well. It's important for me to thrive for myself, and then obviously also for his family. So I think that was kind of something as I've become an adult, not just with the work in the IC, that has made more sense as I've gotten older.
That's pretty cool.
So tell us about your transition. So you left college and then you went into government contracting and consulting. And so when did you make the decision to go into government? And
Yeah.
what was that decision, and where did you decide to go?
Yeah, so it was a couple of things. My father, yet again, was saying, you got to become government. You got to become government. And I was like, it's fine. Like, I love my job. I love the people I work with. I like the work I'm doing. And he's like, no, it's it's so different. You have to become a government employee. And I was like, okay, all right. Well, I've done this for a few years. It was a little over a decade, almost 15 years that I've been doing it. And I said, all right, well, let me try something different, a different lens. So I started applying to some positions. And at the time, ODNI in particular, they were not hiring external people because they had a cap, they just weren't hiring external folks at the time. So a friend of mine had said, hey, there's a position open. ODNI at the time, not yet but ODNI at the time, for certain skill sets, had the opportunity to hire externally. So my background is both cybersecurity SME and then also information technology auditing allowed me to kind of help them fill a skill set that they really needed. So it worked out very well. That's actually how I came in 2017. I was in the Inspector General's office doing information security auditing. And that was really fascinating to kind of see across the intelligence community some of the challenges, and then kind of, understand becoming government, what that change was. I think in my head it was, kind of before when I was a contractor, it was more business development, but it's so much more than that, right? Like once you're a government employee, there's just a lot of emphasis on really appreciating the fact that you are there as a public servant. Like your focus is really making sure that you're doing right by the government and by the nation. So it was really interesting to come into that position. And then I spent about a year there doing inspections and some audits. And then I moved over to doing information sharing. And at the time, the role was more focused on data management throughout the intelligence community. So it was a fascinating time, right? Like data was just becoming more of a thing. And, we were getting seats at the table in terms of folks realizing, oh, maybe we should care about, the data and talk to those data people over there. So it was a really interesting time because it got us to the table and having these important conversations. And then from that, I moved on. I was the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer for the IC and in an acting capacity. And then I got selected for the role that I'm in now as the Chief Data Officer and Chief of AI for ODNI.
That's a lot of hard jobs.
Well, it's been interesting, but yes, very, very challenging at times, especially the one position in particular where I just remember, I think all the jobs I've had a lot of meetings, but there was one in particular where I had to carve out time for personal breaks. So that was interesting, and still having folks, kind of trying to talk about work as you're making your way to take a break. But but it's been good. It's been definitely something I've enjoyed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So like with areas like cyber or data or AI, like I have to imagine that it sounds like you were in those roles when so much of the external conditions were changing and like evolving.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think in some ways it sounds like you were kind of at the forefront of like there wasn't a status quo, like there weren't rules about how to handle these things.
Yeah.
Like how did you go about in the government in particular, like charting new paths? And like what is that process like in an organization that has 18 different components?
Yeah. So I'd say part of the time I've spent, so I think the part that some people don't always recognize is ODNI has the internal focus, which is all things internal to ODNI. And then we have what is the IC facing portion. So there's an IC Chief Data Officer and then an ODNI Chief Data Officer, which I'm the ODNI Chief Data Officer. So what's interesting is charting course with the IC facing was really fascinating because you have so many different missions in each of the different IC elements. And that was really fascinating, especially those that traditionally have larger budgets. They were usually a little bit more advanced and established in their programs. And it's actually really kind because a lot of those larger organizations will work with smaller organizations. So we call them kind of the big five and the Agile 13, the smaller ones being the Agiles. And they'll help us, right? They'll help us understand, hey, we partner with private sector and, some of our other national security partners, and we're seeing some really great movement and seeing some really great strides in this particular topic. And that's really been critical, especially when I've worked data positions, just because cyber is still continuing to evolve and will continue to evolve, but it's definitely more established than what data has traditionally been. And it will be the same way with more of the AI work. But I think that's really what I find amazing is like this camaraderie and this coalition of the willing in terms of getting the IC thing to do things together, but then also getting expertise and help. And it's just amazing. I mean, I can call up anyone and they'll take time out of their busy schedule and say, hey, yeah, definitely. I'm happy to talk to you about, one of the things I was talking about recently is, what are you doing with data tagging? I know it sounds so foundational and fundamental, but how are you tackling this, right? And especially if you don't have many people to do it. So it's just really nice to have that. You can kind of have this reach back or reach out to majority of the community.
I think two of the things that stuck out to me, one is with what you just said, is that I don't think anyone has made that distinction about ODNI before, about there's the internal facing and the external facing. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really awesome piece of information that most people don't realize. And just, I think people who are in now understand and know that there is this camaraderie for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Pre 9/11, maybe not so much, but post, nowadays there is this exchange of information. But I don't know if people, like civilian people, really understand that. And, especially what is out in the news and the way people think about the intelligence community is, it's all this secretive things and they don't share and it's a deep state and all this stuff. So it's good to hear you say that as well, that look, I can pick up the phone and call CIA, I can call, NSA, I can call NGA and be like, hey, what are you doing with data tagging?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's, and it's not just, in the science and engineering fields, right? I mean, it's all mission areas
Yeah.
where people are just really willing and want to help, right? We all want to make things better, and we all want to help inform senior policymakers, and we all want to just, feel like we have this community that's, not just a strong community, but a very capable one.
So I don't know if maybe because we've had one or two people from ODNI on before. One is definitely LaRue, very well. I don't know if we've ever asked this, but if you could maybe just, for people who have no idea, what ODNI is, give us a synopsis or like a brief, what is your mission? What do you guys do? Why are you different from another IC agency?
So I think the easiest kind of one-liner is it's truly a coalition of the willing in terms of, we're really there to bring folks together. We're directed to do that. But at the end of the day, the reason it works as well as it does is because of excellent, senior leadership like the top three, as well as all of us as ODNI employees working with the different IC elements to demonstrate value, right? To demonstrate, hey, we're not just here to burden you with, additional authorities or guidance, but we're here to make things better and to make things consistent and to make things, in terms of like data and intelligence, right, more accessible and shareable and discoverable, so that we can really address our national security challenges. But really, the purpose of ODNI is to help bring together the efforts of the different intelligence community agencies and to make decisions and help inform senior policymakers as they make their decisions.
Great.
Yeah.
Kind of in a nutshell.
I'm also curious, Shari, like I'm like kind of forming this question as I say it, but I feel like a lot of people's perception of the intelligence community is that it's like dark rooms, like feels like very sterile. And like, of course, there's like the James Bond stuff of like, you're out in the field, you're like doing crazy stuff. But then there's also the analysts who are just like drinking burned coffee, just like pissed off at the world. Like, what has been your experience? Like you didn't grow up in the IC, right? Like you served 15 years of a career outside the IC. Like, what does it feel like when you walk into the office?
So I'll just tell you, I walked in this morning and I see, my colleagues, and there's Halloween decorations, right? There's people who are excited, to be at work and having their morning coffee and
not burnt.
Not burnt, not burnt. We have one of the so I don't drink coffee, but we have one of those special, Nespresso or pod machines, or people bring in their own, flavored pods and share them. But it's really cute. I mean, there's little, we call them bullpens, where it's a couple of, office spaces with a central area and usually a table in the middle, so we can have, meetings, ad hoc meetings. And, there's always, candy and treats and things on the table, for people to kind of pick at, especially from people's trips, right? Like taffy during the summer. But it's just really nice. And I think what I enjoy the most, right, is it feels a bit like a family in terms of, in the same breath, we're talking about, some of the critical system issues as we're talking about, hey, somebody, roasted a pig the other night and they're bringing it in for people to share, right? It's kind of that really interesting balance between the day-to-day work that, sometimes it can be challenging to digest some of the problems that are going on in the world, and us, especially as what we call enablers, helping to support that. It's critical, but it's really nice to have those moments with each other, with your colleagues, and just really enjoy, being with the people that you work with. So definitely no burnt coffee, and definitely, no dark rooms. I mean, there's a few, right? There's a couple of rooms where, there's a couple of dark rooms, but that's mainly because the computer should not be, hitting sunlight. But no, I'd say it's definitely different from that.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. Do you think that your relationships with your coworkers are unique in that way? Like, I thought it was interesting what you said about like it's really difficult to process everything happening in the world, and that it's like whereas a lot of people can say like, oh, I'm not going to check the news, or like I'm not going to check social media, like it's your job to see that, right? So how do you manage that? And it sounds like you lean on your coworkers for that, which I think is probably a different like emotional relationship than I think most people have with their coworkers.
Yeah, it is, because I mean, a lot, you can bring certain things home, right? The high level, generalities. But there's a lot of things that you can't. So it is important to be able to have those conversations with coworkers and to kind of have that outlet, definitely. So I'm grateful for that. I don't think it's truly unique just with my office. I think I've worked a couple places and I feel like I've had that benefit. But I don't know. I'm very partial. I truly love ODNI and I've loved my time there. And I love the fact that I can get excited about all things STEM, and there's a place for me, right?
You can nerd out on
I can.
STEM.
Yeah. So
and you have other people to nerd out with.
I do. Yeah. So it's kind of our job to do that so that we can figure out issues. But it's a really nice place to kind of feel that inclusion and that acceptance.
So I'm wondering if you could tell us one of your best days. Working in the government in general. It doesn't have to, be in this specific role. But tell us about one of your favorite days.
Oh, that's a good one. So more recently, it has to be me getting my ODNI data strategy signed, because that was a long time in the making.
I love that answer.
That was very exciting. Like, I'm not gonna lie,
such a uniquely government.
Yeah, it is. And I have probably 3 or 4 copies in my bag in my car, just in case anybody wants a copy. I was like, just in case they want a copy, they want.
It's like, Shari, can I have your autograph?
Yeah.
No, but you can have a signed version of my data strategy.
So very excited about that. I'd say some other ones though are definitely when there was a particular, and this was obviously years ago. When a particular terrorist was apprehended, it was really exciting, although, I was not an analyst doing the work, to be an enabler that kind of helped with the pieces that got to that point. I think that was really exciting. And to see the energy and the excitement of those folks, some of that had worked on that, that was really, really emotional and very exciting to see that. So I think it's a really wide spectrum, right? Like something as mundane as like a strategy all the way to something that's very much, mission impact. So I think there's just been a lot of great moments, but those are just 2.
I love that she said that, because I feel like the data points that most people have are like, oh, I watched Zero Dark 30, and there's this like hero analyst who like basically hunted Osama bin Laden by herself, right? And like wrangled all of Washington and the whole intelligence apparatus to like come along with her. But that's like not how it works, right? Like there are literally like hundreds, if not thousands, if not more than that, like tens of thousands of people who all in some way
touch some way.
Yeah, you think about it, right? All of the data that went into that, all of the systems to process that data, all of the analysts that did the work, all of those that did checks and balances in the different intelligence community agencies involved, right? There's just so much that goes into these efforts. It's really fascinating, and it's impressive. Mm-hmm. It's really impressive.
That's awesome. So I am dying to know, when did you work at the Gap?
Okay, good. I was wondering when we were getting to the most important question on this interview.
I have been waiting this whole time, and I'm starting to think your career culminates at the Gap.
It does. So it was the very first job that I had. I think I had to get some type of like permission form, because I think I was like 14 and you had to be like 15 to work or something. So they had amazing discounts, by the way.
It's 50%, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember back in the day.
Wow.
Yes.
I remember.
And I am not a tall person, so there might have been times where I might have gotten stuff from Gap Kids. And it was already cheap. And then with a discount, it was pretty amazing. I might still have a pair of like kids' gloves from there. But anyways, so truly enjoyed working there. One of my highlights, though, that sticks out is I wanted a raise. I had been working there, I think, like maybe a year.
This. I already know where it's going.
And
I
in the
think
spirit of advocating, I was like, oh. So I don't know if anyone will get this reference, but David Letterman at the time, talk show host, very popular, had these top 10 lists. And so I decided that I would make a top 10 list of reasons why I should get a raise.
I love it.
And I got my raise. It was very exciting.
How did you present that top 10 list? I mean, you
Such
can't
a good
skip
question.
over that part.
I was trying to think of what the actual number like one, right? Because it was always like 10 through like 6 were
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was like the top 5 that were pretty amazing. I think it had something to do with my folding skills and my ability to quickly inventory the products that came in, because I was pretty good at that. Like the quick folds and getting things onto the shelves in the stock room.
So did you have to present this to your manager of the store or like a regional manager?
It's my manager at the store. Yeah.
And you got
talk about
your
dark
raise.
rooms. It was like a back dark room, like in the inventory, like warehouse area. Yeah. So
The only, and this is going to date me, but like when I think about Gap and like working at the Gap, I just think about the Saturday Night Live skit with David Spade, and you know when he's like, "Welcome to the Gap," you know, they do the whole thing. And I recently saw an interview with him because he does he has his own podcast now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And with Dana Carvey and David Spade.
oh, that must be great.
And I don't know if it was on that or he did something separately, and he was talking about that skit. Like I think that was the one he wrote. Like it was his that he wrote, and then he would get people on, and there were some guest hosts that wouldn't do it with him.
Really?
Yeah. They were like, because you know they were really out there. The way they would. The things that they would do in the skit, and there were some people who took themselves too seriously, and they would say like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that skit."
That's such a shame.
So when I think about the Gap, that's what I think.
yeah. That like the very colorful sweaters that were really popular for a while.
Oh my God.
But yeah,
those are good times. What does being a sales associate at the Gap have in common with being the chief data and artificial intelligence officer at ODNI?
So it was actually interesting at the time. I probably did not appreciate enough, but the analytics, the analysis that they did on the customers, I think at the time, I would have loved to have been able to kind of play with more modern times with approvals from our civil liberties and privacy and transparency folks.
You should do a shout out
General
to
Counsel. But that being said, it was very interesting. Kind of like the buying patterns and in order to help inform how they were restocking products and what was selling out. And it was really interesting, and by location. So I would definitely say that those are kind of the first touch points of data analysis, especially business analytics.
I think people are going to love this episode just because they're going to be able to nerd out a little bit, who are big data people. There are people out there like yourself.
And please, I hope they come find me on LinkedIn if they want to nerd out anymore. I would love to. We just did a live episode, and I remember because we had two tech women on this episode. Two amazing tech women.
And we had student questions, and there was a young man who went up and he was like, "I'm a data analytics person. Is that still important for the IC?" And they literally grabbed out of their chairs and
give
they're
us
like,
your name.
"Yes, it is.
We'll talk."
Please. Yeah. So I think people are just going to love this for that reason. So tell us kind of what's next. What's on your dream list to do next?
So there is a lot to do now that I have that designation for Chief of Artificial Intelligence. There's a lot of work that we have to do. I think we're in a good place, but there is a lot we still want to be doing in order to, improve workflows and kind of, find the needle in the haystack faster, more efficiently in terms of the hard-hitting questions for intelligence. So definitely a lot of work there I'm really excited about doing. And also there's just so much more technology now. Like just even within the past year, there's just so much great tech to help support what we're doing. So I'm very excited about what that brings and the collaboration. And I'm so fortunate. So going back to, the IC-facing Chief Data Officer and Chief AI Officer, there are fantastic women in those roles, which I get to collaborate with along with all the other IC elements as well. So a lot of great partnerships and a lot of fun problems to tackle.
I love that.
Me too. Shari, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies?
So right now, I will say sleep is always at the top of the list. I know. It's so sad. I have a very young child. So it's very exciting when she sleeps and not so exciting when she doesn't. But that being said, I definitely love traveling. I'm hoping we'll get to a point where it's a little easier again for us to do that. I definitely love that. I used to love to bake. And also really just, getting out there hiking and doing stuff outdoors. It's been really...
What's your favorite thing to bake? What's the signature Shari?
I'm laughing because my husband's probably thinking I haven't tried something she's baked in so long, probably 10 years. I'd say one of the things that I really loved to bake was homemade apple pie,
Ooh.
From scratch, including the crust. I actually learned...
If you had any doubts that Shari's a real American.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's 100% clear.
Exactly. And somebody told me how to perfect the crust so that, the outside, the rim doesn't burn and, burn before the inside or the main part is cooked. So I'd say that I really, really enjoy. And I don't know, something about peeling the apples and stuff is just
kind of
enjoyable.
cathartic
Yeah,
or something.
yeah. But it has been a long time since I have done that.
Well, now you can teach your kids when they get a little bit older.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of. I've been doing a lot of banana bread with my son.
Love it.
Which is great. It's easy.
Put some chocolate chips in there.
Just mash everything up. Gets all over the kitchen, but easy to clean up. So,
yeah. And not so many ingredients. You can, you can get some ripe bananas.
Yep.
Throw some flour in there. Some sugar.
Yep.
It's all good. Butter.
Perfect. Yes.
I don't think Megan's a baker.
Yeah. She's hitting the high points. Those are the key things.
We're for everyone here at Iron Butterfly. You need a recipe, let us know.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are kind of my current hobbies. But
that's amazing.
I definitely miss traveling.
Yeah. Where's your favorite place to travel?
I'd say I have top two favorites right now is we went to Patagonia and hiked the W Trail.
That sounds amazing.
It was beautiful. And then very opposite end of the spectrum is we went on a trip to Japan and Thailand. So I guess that's maybe three places. But I definitely it was the first time I had been to Asia, and it was just so different. And I loved it. I cannot wait to go back.
So I will do a plug. So I lived in Korea for 5 years, and you should go. That should be next.
I would love that.
Korea's really beautiful. Also, Asia. I'm just going to start giving you ideas.
Yes.
Megan's angling as a travel agent.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would love that.
If you need a personal guide, she is your gal.
Mongolia was also amazing
really?
and very different. I mean, going to Thailand and going to Japan and Korea, that's their first world places, right? Mongolia is a different animal, but it's gorgeous. So another one for your list.
I would love that. I love that in Nepal. I would love to go.
Oh, yeah. That sounds good.
So.
I want to go to Patagonia. I want to hike in Patagonia. Oh, my God. Iron Butterfly trip. When we make it rich, we'll go on it.
The podcast could just be at the top of the W trip.
Oh my goodness, yes. Wow. Hey, we got to manifest.
No, I know. I just am having visions of us.
Oh my God, no. Are you kidding? Swag, Iron Butterfly jackets and hats as we're hiking up. Oh my gosh.
I'm thinking about the view. You're thinking about the swag, and I love that.
We got to be Iron Butterfly'd out, right?
Definitely.
Oh my gosh.
Well, this is This has been so fun. We do have one more question.
Yes.
And so I think you already know what it is,
I
but I'm
do.
going to ask
I
you
do.
anyway.
I do.
So we always ask this question because it keeps with the name of the podcast and Eloise Page, who is the namesake. If you were to give yourself a code name, what would it be and why?
Yes. So if I had a code name, it would be Steel Blossom.
So good.
I was thinking about it, and I took a page out of one of your recent guest playbook, and also having the data and AI focus these days. I went and I did some searching, and also I didn't find anything that I loved. So I kind of merged a couple of different things that I saw. But what I really liked about it was the fact that I think personality-wise, both at work and at home, is kind of how I operate in terms of, kind of the steel part being that strength and kind of that resilience and the need to kind of be firm in my views at times to achieve things. But the blossom part being that gentleness, that kindness, and really understanding that you can't have one without the other to be successful in life, right? And to achieve things in life, you'll alienate folks with one or the other.
Yeah.
Only. And I try to find, kind of balance the same way at home, right? I think I try to be pretty firm with my kids, but also, make sure they know that they are, supported and loved. But I want them to be good human beings. So I try to make sure that there's equal parts of both steel and blossom.
I love it.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Do you feel like your kids are receptive to that? Like, and I don't know, and or how does your partner complement that?
So I'm so thankful because it's not, one of us is not the good guy and the bad guy. I think we're both kind of equally the same way. So I'm thankful for that because he is definitely an equal partner. But in terms of them being receptive, so the younger one I think is too young to kind of recognize. Whenever I tell her not to do something, she just turns and laughs and does it anyway.
Yes.
But my older child, I think it has sunk in, and he's definitely much more receptive to it. So I'm grateful because I'm starting to see, okay, the way he treats other people. For the most part, I think he's learning some of these things.
Fruits of your labor. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes, it's kind of not falling on unheard ears. So yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, Shari, it's been amazing having you on. Thank
you
you
so much.
again for saying yes. Thank you for finding time with us. And we always love having women in STEM. And, we joked about you being nerdy, but we're all nerds. And I love that this was a little bit of a nerdy episode. So thank you again for just bringing your whole self and for saying yes to this. It was great getting to know you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. We were really excited about getting to know you. And thank you and your dad for your service to our country.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, Megan, we have made it to the season 7 finale of Iron Butterfly podcast. How does it feel to be here?
It's amazing. I mean, I don't think any of us could have believed we were going to hit 7 seasons, and just saying it out loud is surreal.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I think as I reflect on just kind of where we've been and just where we are now, I think one thing that people don't always realize is that Iron Butterfly, of course, like it's our baby and we love it, but it really has been like created and built and nurtured by a whole community of people that are, our family, our friends, our neighbors, and just people who we've come to know really well and come to love through Iron Butterfly podcast. So we're going to talk about a few of those today. So we started accepting corporate sponsorships at the beginning of this year. And then midway through the year for season 7, we actually launched our Patreon, which is really exciting because it's a way for individuals who just want to support us, want to give more, and just who love Iron Butterfly to just support us at a different level. So we launched Patreon, and as part of the benefits of our highest subscription tier, our Iron Butterfly champions Nice.
Yes.
That was pretty good. Our Iron Butterfly champions get a special shout out on our season 7 finale. So that's why we're here.
So I have the list. I have it right here.
Okay.
Special list.
Wow. Drum roll, please.
Okay. So what the audience is not going to know, or they're going to have to figure out, is we're going to be naming them by code name. So the first one is Simple Patriot, who is our beacon and is our number one believer. So thank you, Simple Patriot. Number 2 is Velvet Hammer. She is our mentor, who really taught us how to lead with love. And so thank you, Velvet Hammer. Sapphire Helix. Sapphire Helix, just thank you so much for being, unapologetically you. So thank you. Secret Squirrel Girl. Your energy and original ideas are next to none. And so thank you, Secret Squirrel Girl. Mother of Pearl. Mother of Pearl, thank you for creating our pearl. And Acadian Sage, thank you for imparting your wisdom on our pearl. So thank you all for being our Patreon highest members. And we are so thankful for you. And we're sending you our love.
Amazing. So thank you everyone so much. We truly, this list is, yes, those who are giving to Iron Butterfly on Patreon, but it's also people who we have literally built this and created this with. And there are pieces of all of those people in every single one of our episodes. So,
absolutely.
So thank you all. We would also be remiss if we didn't mention our sponsors from 2024 who have allowed us to invest in our beautiful studio, in the beautiful audio and video equipment that you see, to pay our amazing team, and just really to kind of keep us going and to help us really invest and grow in this community and in this important mission. So we want to thank AWS, which is a 2-time sponsor. So thank you so much, AWS, for your continued support. Jane's, which was our first-time sponsor, who came to us by way of one of our Iron Butterflies from this year. So thank you, Jane's. RGI, which has just been continually one of the most supportive companies of Iron Butterfly, both Iron Butterfly Media as well as Iron Butterfly Foundation. Clearance Jobs, who has supported us in more ways than one with some wacky ideas and creative ideas as well as financial support. Eclipse Technologies, who came to us by way of a mentor and an amazing leader in the space, who is growing and changing as well, and we're so grateful to have them. Sims Software, which is also kind of a 2-time sponsor of Iron Butterfly, who has just been kind of with us from the very beginning and kind of bet on us when we were just a little baby company that didn't have studio and had broken microphones. So thank you for investing in us. And then, of course, our founding sponsor, NSI, National Security Institute at George Mason. We literally wouldn't be here without you. So thank you so much to all of our sponsors, all of our Iron Butterfly champions. And we know that 2025 is going to be even more awesome, and we hope this list is longer. So thank you, everybody.
Yay, thank you.
And Happy New Year. This has been an episode of Iron Butterfly Podcast. To learn more about Iron Butterfly Media, visit our website at www.ironbutterflymedia.com. If you like the show, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, and follow Iron Butterfly on social media for bonus content. You can also support us on Patreon. Lastly, we want to thank our producer, Amanda Young, and the entire Iron Butterfly team. Stay fierce, and we'll talk next time.